part of what we're going to talk about here is how astrology informs the therapy process and like what that actually looks like. Because I think one of your observations is that there actually is like there are some people that are primarily psychotherapists that do incorporate astrology to some extent in their work. And while that's not like a huge portion of the field necessarily, it's interesting just that that exists, and it's something that's not necessarily widely recognized. So it would be interesting to look into how that works and what that's about.
Yes. And I would love to share with you a few quotes from Carl Jung about his process of using astrology in psychotherapy, because I think this is the other thing is that we're like, oh yeah, Carl Jung, he valued astrology, but like, did he actually use it? Did he use the chart in his process? Did he talk to his clients about it? Like, those are the kinds of things I want to know. Like, what did he actually do?
Right.
And we don't have a lot on that, unfortunately. But there's a couple of things. Um, so let's see. So two different core quotes that I'll share. So Carl Jung wrote in a letter in 1911 to Freud. So this is like very early on in his studies. This may be a popular one that folks have heard. He says, "My evenings are taken up very largely with astrology. I make horoscopic calculations in order to find the clue to the core of psychological truth." And so that to me says that he's pulling a chart and he's looking at it to assess his understanding of the client case. And so
Yeah.
this is an yeah.
I love that quote because I always can just he's like writing that to Freud, and I always just imagine like Freud rolling his eyes and being like, okay, um, and what his reaction would have been. But yeah, that's one of the like core quotes, and that's from super early in Jung's career.
Yes. And then so later there's a letter that I think this is also, quite popular, but it bears repeating. Carl Jung wrote in a letter to astrologer B.V. Raman. This is in 1947. So this is fairly late in his career. He says, "Since you want to know my opinion about astrology, I can tell you I've been interested in this particular activity of the human mind for more than 30 years. In cases of difficult psychological diagnosis, I usually get a horoscope in order to have a further point of view from an entirely different angle. I must say that very often I found that the astrological data elucidated certain points which I otherwise would have been unable to understand. From such experiences, I form the opinion that astrology is of particular interest to the psychologist."
Yeah, for sure. So it's like, and then he's also writing like the papers on synchronicity, and he's doing like his astrology test like during those, or at least during one of those. So it's like it keeps coming up at different points in his life. And I've done other episodes kind of going in more detail about Jung's background in astrology, but I think the conclusion was with those was that there was no, I don't want to say no question, but it seemed like it was easy to classify him as an astrologer, although obviously he was primarily a psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from what I can tell, it's definitely something that he used to inform his understanding, but maybe not necessarily with clients.